Okay, so this is a buddy of mine, Bobby Hughes. Makes me feel love. I grew up with him went to school with him at St. John's High School in Gulfport, Mississippi. He was in my brother's class. We went to Mardi Gras together when I was a sophomore and a senior, and he ragged me unmercifully. He went to Southern Miss, so did I. He graduated in 1979, 1980, around that time. And he came to North Carolina, and during the 80s, there was a recession, and he got a job flipping pizzas for Domino's. So he worked in the Domino's franchise group for about 3 to 5 years. And amazingly, somehow they saw something in Bobby that made him want to help them become a franchise operator. So Bobby, I don't know, 10 years ago, I mean, 10 years later, I'm not sure when, became his own franchise owner, started his first franchise, and gradually grew to more than one, and again, and again. And then he got the contract for Camp Lejeune, and that's when he exploded. I mean, went fire rockets. So he was at the 50th anniversary of my 50th anniversary in 2023 of my brother's reunion. Bobby now owns 57 Domino's franchise in Carolina, 17 freezies, and just the land, not the franchises, just the real estate that he owns is worth $171 million. This is a guy who came from nothing, started flipping pizzas, took that as an opportunity, ran with it, and became wildly successful. And that is the story about franchising and the opportunities that if everything lines up, how franchising can be enormously successful. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear me say it. Franchising is one of those unique, particular, it is not an American phenomenon, franchising. Franchising was actually created in Europe, but in one of those unique things that Americans related to, you know, a good idea, when you steal one, we took it, we refined it. There are over 140 franchise opportunities, 140,000 franchise opportunities in the United States, from the small to the tall. And franchising to this day has many reasons why it is still successful. The immortal Richard C. Vreeland, who was my retailing teacher, one of the men who inspired me to become a teacher, he used to say that he did a topic on franchising and said, franchising is the greatest way with someone with a lot of money and not much sense can still be a winner. And he's kind of right in that way. Maybe not that severe, but that was Dr. Vreeland. So let's talk about what franchising is. So franchising is almost like a vertical market in a way, but not. It combines the best features in a unique American way. And the model, since that it's been refined, has spread all over the world. So if you go to the McDonald's franchise, the one here up on the corner, and you order through the drive-through, when you come up to the drive-in window, there's a little plaque there. And the plaque says, operated by such and such corporation with an address and a phone number. Now, it seems interesting because you're driving up to a McDonald's, so why do you see that? Well, this is the whole point of the way that the franchise sets up. Sorry. Let me see if I can make that go away. Somewhat. Okay, get out of there. So what is franchising? Franchising is a channel structure that is intended to convince end users that they're buying from a vertically integrated manufacturer. Franchising is made up of two organizations. The corporate organization known as the franchisor, who are the upstream manufacturers of the product or service, seems to be franchise, especially loans itself to food franchise. But there are, of course, many others. Franchisors are the upstream partners. Franchisees are separate companies that provide all of the marketing channel functions downstream. They are two separate organizations. The franchisee runs that business as if they are a part of the corporation. Essay question: the hallmark of a franchise is the franchisee's deliberate loss of a self-identity or a separate one. It is a separate corporation, but it takes upon the facade of the upstream manufacturer. It is the hallmark, I should say, of a business format franchise. We'll talk about name and brand franchises on Thursday, which are a little bit different. But as far as you're concerned, for the essay, what is unique about franchising is it is a deliberate loss of a separate identity. Franchising has been around, as I've said, for a while. Franchising, as I've said, has grown and will continue to grow. It has distinct advantages that make it unique. They are two independent businesses that join together to perform all of the marketing functions, including the channel ones, for their mutual benefit. The franchising structure in many ways minimizes the conflicts that go on between two independent organizations, because the franchisor has a skin in the game when it comes to the success of his franchisee. By the very same token, the franchisee needs the franchisor. Therefore, the franchisee compromises their independence. Now, it should also say that the franchisee does not necessarily have to own one more, excuse me. The franchisee does not have to only own one franchise. As I said before, my friend Robert, not Bobby, Bobby had two. He had the Freezy King and he had Smoothie King, excuse me, and he had the Domino's franchises. Other companies do different. If you wanted to be a Chick-fil-A franchisor, they have very unique ways that they work. Chick-fil-A franchising, so McDonald's, differences between the McDonald's franchise fee is $1.25 million. If I got $1.2 million, why do we need a franchise? But there are those who do. Chick-fil-A, $4,000. What's the difference? Chick-fil-A takes 40 years to vet you as an individual before they will give up a franchise. And Chick-fil-A requires that you do not make more than 50% of your other money for something outside of Chick-fil-A. That is their way of measuring success. The difference is that a McDonald's franchise annually does $4.5 million worth of revenue, and a Chick-fil-A for each one annually does $6.7 million of revenue. Chick-fil-A makes 50% more than every McDonald's does for several good reasons. So, two independent, joining forces, mutual benefit, franchisee compromises their independence. the franchisees grow, and as they achieve growth, they can turn their franchising operations into other managed outlets. The franchisees maintain a separate balance, separate income statement. But all of those things are based also upon the requirements of the franchisor. Franchising is the fastest growing form of retailing with a lot of reasons, and we'll keep talking about that, all right? Now, it doesn't mean it's the only way to have success, but they're pretty darn successful. So, franchisor, franchisee. What are the benefits to the downstream for giving up my identity? So, as I said, Dr. Vreeland said, franchising is a great way with someone with lots of money and little skill or talent to be able to succeed. And that's one of the benefits. You have this personal fulfillment or desire to be able to go out and do something and achieve, but the risk of starting businesses are enormous. I've started 3, and the first one was the most difficult because quite simply, you just don't know everything. You know, once you know what a 941 quarterly return is, and you have to file those in order to meet your unemployment benefits, otherwise they'd close your business tomorrow. Those are the kind of things that you've got to know, and not all of that is explained to you. A franchise arrangement is a great combination for someone like that. The franchise or develops a business format that the franchisee uses in order to achieve success. They are limited in how they can go about things because the franchisor has this prepackaged solution to the problems, but realize the franchisor has all sorts of resources, has opened these businesses before, and has a definite idea on how to achieve success in your basic requirement. So, most businesses, do not succeed. 45,000 new products are brought out every year, and less than 5% succeed. Businesses are in the same way. Franchises, 90% of all fast food places go out of business within the first 3 years. It's a tough thing out there to run your own business. What franchisors give you is a great start. That's one of the things that they do. And the 3 of their benefits are the startup package, the ongoing benefits, and the competitive advantages of being in a franchise. And we're going to talk about these one at a time. So the first is site selection. Anybody want to guess how much the property that the McDonald's sits on is worth? So it's near the 421, 321, 105 intersection. So how much do you think that little piece of property is worth? Put $1 million on it, 500,000, and that's the price of the property. The Wendy's franchise on the corner, the property, the real estate value is worth $4 million. That little Wendy's, by the way, from what I hear, is the number one number one West of Wendy's in terms of volume in all of Western Carolina. There's a reason why that little thing is 2 stories high. So just think about that in just terms of real estate, the value that you've got to put up just before you even start building the building. Well, you get help from the franchisor because McDonald's will do a site analysis. They'll determine what is the best property, and McDonald's has what's called the golden handcuffs. So what they do is they allow you to build the building and own it, but they own the land that it's on. Clever, aren't they? But it worked. It means also that the franchisor cannot just abandon that to its own devices. It has to go in and help. And so the first thing that a franchisor will do is go out and look and see what the properties are. that's also part of its business model as well. So they mentioned budget. So Avis and Hertz, generally in their business models are by airports, bus stations, those kind of things. Enterprises is a little bit different. Enterprise, their business model is they want to rent cars to people who need them for 5 to 7 days longer. They tend to be using them for trips, and they also use them if their cars are in the shop. And so by that business model, the enterprise rental cars generally are in suburbs in the United States. So if you have an enterprise, they will look for some location that is off the main drag, but located close enough to residential areas. I do not know how this one in Boone survives being in that area, other than they just got to be an incredible demand for them. So site selection is the first advantage that a franchisor brings. The next it brings is a brand name. You don't start off from a dead stop. A brand name, when you're building a new franchise, builds excitement in many ways that when you're coming into the community. There's like a bunch of people right now just waiting for an Aldi to hit boom. It sounds crazy. We need one more supermarket. Well, yes, we do. We need one more, and it's an Aldi. And so when that hits, you're going to see some pretty interesting stuff. So the brand name helps it enormously. When Pizza Hut went out of business, when that corporation or the, oh gosh, which one? Harris Teeter bought that property in front. I said to myself, why would you do that? That building's only good for pizza. Well, they tore it down and put a gas station up there. Couldn't believe that. But Pizza Hut was going to come back. Why? Because we know a lot about research, and we know that the brand name that attracts a lot of pizza lovers is Pizza Hut, whether you like it or not. So the brand name is the second thing that they have. The third is the economies of scale. A franchisor can come in with huge, big shoulders and take, just like a wholesaler, takes all the demand from the retailers, pulls the demand together, and can go out and write their own tickets for people to make the food for them, like a McDonald's does, takes all of that collectively together, and then ships them weekly or even daily to those particular franchises. And that's the power of the economies of scale. Now, who was it? Subway. So one of the things in the Subway contract is that they would deliver fresh vegetables every day. That was part of the contract. And they had one of the least expensive of all franchise fees. It was like $18,000. It meant that even mom and pop places, if they had the wherewithal and the facilities, could put a Subway in. Well, the problem with that is when they got to 28,000 locations across the United States, logistics started to become a nightmare. And then they decided that they were only going to ship fresh goods once a week. Does anybody like 5-day-old lettuce? No. So they had to go back on that and redo things and figure out a better way. But that's one of the difficulties. They got to that golden spot and they couldn't stop. The last is with that also is the customer, the franchisee. As soon as you as soon as you get a franchise like that, you immediately have a partner with big shoulders. You can go to local vendors and say, I'm a franchisor for McDonald's, and they start getting nervous and they start writing contracts as fast as they can. And so these are the powers that a franchisor brings to a franchisee. The ability to select site, the brand name, and the economies of scale, all of these things. The next is the ongoing benefits. Test question. Franchising is not a system for launching a business. Franchising is a system for running a business. A franchise is set up to be able to have franchisees invest in their time in what are considered to be the best efforts to achieve success. And so daily, the McDonald's manager, whoever that might be, sends a daily report to McDonald's corporate. Way back in 1982, when I was in Lafayette, I worked for Radio Shack. And even then we sent daily reports, dial-up modems, 300 baud. Now, I mean, it was old school, definitely, but we did pretty much the same thing. What happens also for them, for the McDonald's, is along with all of those, along with your information, 13,000 franchises across the United States are sending all of that information up as well. All that information hits their massive analytic databases, and the analytic databases start grinding out predictions for the next 3 to 6 months. That information that you send up as a franchise goes into their particular system, and it determines, based upon a measuring stick, whether you're doing great, whether you're doing bad, whether you need supervision, and this is a franchise that's in real trouble. It's this continuous program of field supervision and monitoring and trying to correct quality problems. These are the things that the franchise or does for the franchisee. It's not about launching the business, it's about running it. By hands reports, they're able to hopefully cut things off when they happen. The feedback hopefully will help the franchisee. They may even send someone from corporate to loan you for a month or two to be able to help you get your franchise on the feet. So startup package, the ongoing benefits, and then the competitive advantage of a franchise. Franchisors act as the consolidators of the channel. They achieve the economies of scale of one little business multiplied by 13,000 more. Not only that, but they can focus on one thing. Franchisors can focus on a series of products that are synergistic, but not necessarily competitive. So one of the things I had a friend, well, one of my students, nice guy, opening up a franchise, a fast food one. I made this comment. He's successful. He didn't need me. But one of the things that I said was limit your menus. Okay. Limiting your menus will be able to achieve success. How many things does Chick-fil-A make? Anybody count them? How many things they sell? What's Chick-fil-A sell? Chicken. There's a good start. Good start. What else do they sell? Fries? Yes. Waffle fries. What else? Drinks? Yes. What else? Ice cream. Absolutely. Okay. What more? Pardon? Mac and cheese. Yes. Yes. Salads. Okay, which also can be used for the sandwiches. What do you need for sandwiches besides everything else? What else you need? Sauce and bread. Yeah, exactly. That's 8 ingredients. Okay, I think I counted 10. All right. Just think about how narrowly defined that is. Being able to just take 10 different ingredients and being able to come up with a menu. I worked at the IHOP, the House Pancakes. There were 200 items. And you want to give you an idea of the nightmare as a cook is trying to handle 200 items when you're trying to deal with so many other things. Well, that's what a franchisor does. They focus on what they do best, how to maximize each individual product they sell. And that focus helps them to take those worries off of the franchisees. It prevents free riding as well. So what free riding means is when one party reaps the benefit from another. Well, there is no such thing in a franchise because each franchisee has a given territory and nobody can cross those lines. Once again, that also reduces the conflict in a relationship. It also guarantees consistency as well. So I can get a sausage McMuffin in Nome, Alaska, and it's the same sausage McMuffin that I can get in Boca Raton, Florida. There is a consistency across that, and consumers appreciate that consistency. Interesting, Holiday Inn and Ramada in the 70s, they would build did the exact same floor plan for every single Holiday Inn in Ramada that they ever built. They actually had a commercial that said, the best surprise is no surprise. Well, they've changed that a little bit, but they did that basically is because of this. The consistency that consumers hopefully appreciate will always be there. And it identifies a certain value so that you're able to achieve success, but no mistakes. And people remember mistakes much longer than they remember successes. So you have all of these franchisees. They're having enormous advantages by working with this one partner. They've given up their identity, but they're fine with it. What are the advantages upstream? I've always said this. I think Comeback Shack is one of those companies that is just right for franchise. It's beautifully made. They have a pretty good business. I know nobody in that group. You know, I never talked to them, but I look at them and I think of the advantages they have. They have a really good marketing plan. They focus generally on tourist areas or areas where there's a lot of traffic. They have one other in Myrtle Beach, and they have, of course, the one downtown. And I think, man, that's a really good plan. I love the fact that you can roll up the front and make the inside like the outside. That's a great idea. And I like everything that they make. It's tailor-made. Now, let's say they wanted to go out and they wanted to be able to expand. Well, those ideas are not necessarily trademarked. Anybody can build a building like that or take some of their ideas and try it. And so the difficulty is that when you have a really good idea, the idea's half-life can be awful short. What franchising does for the franchisor is that it allows you to keep the first mover advantage. In other words, it helps you to grow fast. As long as you get franchisees or willing investors to offer within the franchising system the financial resources in order to succeed. Franchising for the franchisor may give up a little bit of power, maybe a little bit of control, especially on branding and those kind of things, but it does give you a way of achieving fast capital in a limited amount of time. Not only that, but as the system grows, they become conduits to each other. The franchisors start to have individuals in them who would like to do some of that entrepreneurial stuff as well. And so what you find is managers who are in the corporate looking to go out and start their own franchises. By the very same token, the franchisees might have individuals with them who would like to go on to bigger things and would like to go on to corporate management, and that makes a conduit up to the franchisor. And so you have this marvelous way that you have an interaction of intelligence moving between both corporations to achieve some form of success. And it also gives anyone who's in a franchise the ability to move. And that's one of those great things, like when you're trying to decide where you want to go in the future. It incentivizes the staff. It makes them get part of the profits, like they've got a skin in the game. The downstream members who start franchisees go with an inherent sense of loyalty to their franchisees, or excuse me. And franchisees also, while their menus tend to be selected, do provide a vision of local circumstances. So you reduce this performance ambiguity or knowing what's going on below you. So where I'm from, Louisiana, Mississippi, I talk about a lot. Growing up Catholic in Louisiana, even though it's not totally Catholic, but predominantly the seasons are like that. So I talked about Lent, and in the 40 days of Lent, traditionally, you're never supposed to eat meat until Sunday, in which you appreciate the fasting. But modernly, we just only don't eat meat on Friday, which means that a lot of fish are consumed on a Friday, and seafood. Yeah, bad. How difficult is that, especially when the liberal seafood is. So the fish sandwich was an idea that actually came out of that area, Louisiana, Mississippi. The McDonald's corporate looked at it, said, let's give it a try. Tried it, they found that catfish tends to be a local taste. So instead of catfish, they went with halibut. And so the McDonald's fillet of fish came into being from that way. And so that's one of the advantages to the franchisor, is that you have feet on the ground, you know what is desired, and sometimes that taste can be spread to others. And so the franchisor gathers that information, it adopts it, and diffuses the best idea to all the other franchises, and now they've achieved a given success that way. It is a win-win situation in a lot of ways. So when I was in South Korea, I went to look for Cheetos. And I finally found Cheetos, but the flavor was Kobe beef. And so in other words, I had Cheetos without cheese, all right? You really have to be careful when you're talking about, biases or anything, because there's always exceptions to the rule. But there is one that there's an Asian documented dislike for cheese. However, William Heineke went to Pizza Hut and wanted to open a franchise in Bangkok, and rationally figured in a city of millions, even if it's 1%, that's 20 to 30% of the people, 20 to 30,000 people who would want to eat pizza. He paid all the fees, he signed all the contracts, and made out like a bandit. Okay. So he grew dozens of outlets in Thailand. The franchisor does not always know the best. Sometimes you can solve problems with your boots on the ground that can be solved upstairs. And this is one of the things that franchising gives them, is the freedom where corporate may say no, that one individual entrepreneur can say, maybe let me try, and then achieve some glorious success like that. Good for him. Finally, after all this, I've got to say that there are reasons why you don't franchise. And perhaps maybe this is the reason my comeback is described. Well, they're going to do that and they're going to go, and it makes a lot of sense. One of them, quite simply, is that they can lead to quick expansion. And if there is an improper thing in your procedures that doesn't affect it when we're talking about ones and twos and dozens, once it's managed, 100 franchises or 1,000, that error can propagate through a system and cause dramatic discontinuities. And so there's not every good reason to franchise. And so franchising, after all talking about all the glory of it, of course, now I'm contradicting myself and saying that franchising is not the only viable way. But even this is not true as well, because Starbucks has franchises in airports in other countries where they're not allowed to own the property that's in those nations. And so even then we say yes, but. So yes, but. Okay, we are finished with the day. We come back Thursday, we're going to talk about franchising strategies, a couple of famous franchisers and how they got their start. Not you, Robert. And I hope you have a great afternoon. Yes.
the position to, is it today or? Is it Thursday?
I'll stretch it to Thursday because it was not properly labeled, so you got till Thursday, okay?
Thank you.
We got a test coming up. I want to make sure maybe 2 weeks from Tuesday, okay? All right.